Tonight, with the fight to stop Donald Trump from rigging the midterm elections in his favor. Today, the Supreme Court rejected a Republican effort to block California's new congressional map. The state drew new districts to favor Democrats after Trump demanded Texas redraw their map to help his party maintain control of the House. Governor Gavin Newsom responded, quote, "Trump said he was entitled to 5 more congressional seats in Texas. He started this redistricting war. He lost, and he'll lose again in November." In Georgia today, Fulton County filed a court motion demanding the return of 2020 ballots seized by Trump's FBI last week. The county's top commissioner said he views the FBI raid as a first step to suppress the voter turnout this year. Trump is putting the building blocks in place. Folks, don't be mistaken here. These are the building blocks he's putting in place for an unconstitutional federal takeover of our elections. Listen to the cities he wants to target next. Take a look at Detroit. Take a look at Pennsylvania. Take a look at Philadelphia. You go take a look at Atlanta. Look at some of the places that see horrible corruption on elections. And the federal government should not allow that. The federal government should get involved. The federal government should get involved. Fulton County might be the first block, but it won't be the last, my friends. Here's Steve Bannon after Trump said Republicans should, quote, nationalize the voting. You're damn right. We're going to have ICE around the polls come November. We're not going to sit here and allow you to steal the country again. And you can whine and cry and throw your toys out of the pram all you want, but we will never again allow an election to be stolen. Joining us now, Fulton County Commissioner Dana Barrett. She's a Democrat running for Georgia's Secretary of State. Also with us, former federal prosecutor Brendan Bellaloo. He served as an attorney with the Justice Department's National Security Division. Commissioner Barrett, explain to us why it is so important that you get these ballots back. I mean, look, at the end of the day, the way these boxes were seized from our elections warehouse, was appalling. And I think even if we get them back at this point, we don't really know what happened in the interim. We had a minimal receipt of what was taken. We don't know where the boxes are now. We don't know who's been rifling through them. And there's no guarantee that what we get back will be what was taken, but we have to at least try. You have to at least try. I also think it's interesting that you're asking to see the affidavit. What is the information you think that will convey? Well, look, I mean, this is a criminal search warrant. So what's the crime? What are we really looking at? The 2 crimes sort of listed at the high level at the warrant that we did see are vague, and we want to know what this is all about so we know what to protect ourselves from. At the end of the day, we all know this is Trump trying to get control of the 2026 elections. And look, we had a process set to deliver those ballots with a set process that both sides would agree on in a few days. But the Trump administration came in and did this with an FBI raid because they knew that if we did it in a process and we agreed with what was taken, they couldn't make up what was inside those boxes. Now they're going to say whatever they want to say about what was there and what it means. You know, let's play some from Fulton County Commissioner Chairman Rob Pitts. This was him today saying the Constitution is at stake. "We will fight using all resources against those who seek to take over our elections. Our Constitution itself is at stake in this fight." The president himself has mentioned some 15 plus other states where he believes that there are problems. That's why I say that this is a very complicated situation that has implications far beyond Fulton County, Georgia. I think the question every American should be asking themselves right now is if the government can walk into the most populous county in a state, seize its election records, a state that the President of the United States currently lost, by the way, 6 years after that election, then what is to stop them from doing that to any populous county in this country the day after the next election? Yeah, a lot to unpack there. And absolutely, the Constitution is at stake in these sorts of crises. Let's talk about the micro first, which is, unfortunately, Fulton County is going to have a very difficult time legally getting the information that it's seeking about the search warrants. So, you know, our system is really not designed for criminal investigations to reveal search warrants before an indictment. And the specific legal vehicle that Fulton County is using right now, Federal Rule of Criminal Procedure 41, is really used for getting property or evidence after a trial has been completed. So it's going to be tough for them to proceed here. I will say I think that they're going to have some more luck, and I think other jurisdictions are going to have some more luck bringing not this sort of narrow statutory claim, but a constitutional one. And one angle for them to be thinking about, again, not just Fulton County, but other counties, other states as well, is think about the 10th Amendment, which gives states, sovereignty over everything that the federal government doesn't have authority over here. The argument would be something like the states have a sovereign interest in administering their own elections. The federal government is interfering in that process by stealing ballots. And, you have evidence that this is more than just an ordinary criminal investigation by the fact that the president says that he wants to nationalize the elections. that he believes falsely, that he says falsely, that the ballots have been falsely counted in Georgia before, that Tulsi Gabbard, the head of DNI, which ordinarily has no domestic law enforcement authority, is involved here. And then there's some allegations that information is being released from the investigation telling Fulton County officials that they're going to be arrested. Now, all of that suggests that this is a political operation. It is a political operation. This isn't about the fact that some states have decided to go rogue in their voting and in their process of voting, and in the idea that citizens can trust the ballots in that state and the federal government, which would then have a legitimate question about, okay, so what are you doing? But they're the problem. And Commissioner, that's the rub that you're going to run into if you're successful in becoming the one who's in charge of and looking after the vote in the state of Georgia, and understanding exactly what's required when you have the President of the United States tell us that we should lock down and control Republicans, should control 15 states, all Democratic states, is democratically run with Democratic leadership across the state. When you have Steve Bannon saying that, oh, we're going to surround the polls with ICE agents. My question is, what polls are you talking about, Stevie? Are you talking about, oh, I don't know, polls in your backyard? Or are you talking about polls in black and brown communities? Are you talking about polls here in Maryland, in Prince George's County, largest black county in the state of Maryland? You talking about putting polls there? Are you talking about putting polls in Mike Johnson's district where he has to go? Mr. Johnson, Speaker Johnson, are you ready to have ICE agents at your poll? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, my bad. Your district is majority white, not those polls, Michael Steele. Oh, that's right. You won't have that problem now, will you, sir? But you oversee the House and can do something about it, but you won't because you're scared. You're scared of Steve Bannon. You're scared of Donald Trump. And I've heard you over the last few days, hubba, 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 a line through your teeth. That's the problem that you're going to have, Commissioner, when you take control. A federal government that doesn't give a damn about your sovereignty as a state, doesn't give a damn about your process. So what are you saying to the people that you're hoping to elect? You elect that you're going to go and be able to protect their most precious asset, and that is the vote? Well, listen, one of the things that you said, you talked about him going after blue states, but we're a swing state. And right now, our state legislature is controlled by Republicans, and our state elections board is controlled by MAGA. And so we are in danger right now in this current year, before I even get a chance to be elected into that job, of the state elections board taking over our elections. So they may back off from this nationalization thing and say, okay, you're right. We can't go against the Constitution. But go ahead, state of Georgia elections board, take over the elections. And that will have the same effect. If the state elections board in Georgia takes over, then, there go the voters of Fulton County's votes, and there go the state of Georgia votes from all Democrats, and potentially there goes some of our major elections here. And, if that continues into 2028, there goes the presidential, right? So we have to have a Secretary of State who is defending our rights, not only as to allow a state takeover, but to allow the counties to run their elections the way they were intended to, and to not allow these changes to state law that are going to infringe on voters. And I'm sure there are similar things happening all across the country in states like ours. The president yesterday had some thoughts about voter ID from the Oval Office. Take a listen. Who would not want voter ID? Only somebody that wants to cheat. Think of it. We don't have voter ID, and the Democrats don't want it. And the reason they don't want, because they want to cheat. So the president does this a lot, I would argue, and frankly, oftentimes very effectively. He takes the simplest, most benign part of what is happening and frames it as that is the issue people have, to make anyone who disagrees seem unreasonable. There are 36 states in this country that already do have some form of voter ID laws. What he is talking about, though, is not is the SAVE Act, really. So it's not just about driver's license, child. This is about the SAVE Act, which we discussed yesterday, is a piece of legislation that, if it passes, would make it so essentially your birth certificate has to match your current name and form of ID. And if they don't match, there's an issue. Well, people like me, my driver's license doesn't match what my birth certificate says because I took my husband's last name. I'm Simone Sanders Townsend. So they would bar me from being able to vote. And the SAVE Act goes so far as to put criminal penalties on the table for election officials that register people to vote when their documents don't match. Anyway, help me understand why. You see how long that explanation was? That's why what the president is saying can be effective. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's extremely concerning because you look at how those sorts of voter roll checks are enforced, how the, sort of driver license ID, even sort of simpler ID requirements are enforced. It's always disproportionately affects minority groups because you often have bluntly white poll workers being more suspicious of minority voters. And so that's always the effect here. I will say, it doesn't seem like there's a ton of momentum for the SAVE Act in Congress, but I am extremely concerned about this, potential ICE deployment that Steve Bannon is talking about. Now, obviously, Steve Bannon is a podcaster. He is trying to get attention so that he can get ad revenue. I always want to take that with a little bit of a grain of salt, but it does seem like this is what's still Steve Bannon. Yeah, he's still Steve Bannon, that it does seem like that's what they are trying to build up towards. And I think it's really important for people that support democracy to Republicans or Democrats to get ahead of this and make very clear it's not just that ICE deployments are unconstitutional, violate the First Amendment, 14th Amendment. Military deployments at polling places is a federal crime. 18 USC 592. Democrats need to be extremely clear. If this happens, they will be criminally prosecuted by a future administration. That is the only way this stops. Commissioner Barrett, how do you anticipate something like that from this administration? What do you need to be doing right now? Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a whole new set of challenges at the county level to protect our elections. This is going to require a level of security from our end. And frankly, we know what this is going to do. It's going to scare people away from the polls. And as has already been said, it's going to scare away black and brown voters more than anybody else. And this is the goal here. But, we can't have our police getting into fights with ICE agents. So it's a real challenge for us. We have to try to stop this legally. And I think, the point of it being a federal crime is key. So we're going to have to start attacking on the legal level as soon as we possibly can to prevent it from even happening. And to that point, Brendan, real quick, we have about a minute left, less left. The one thing I've learned about Donald Trump over the years of watching him and having spent some time in space with him is that he acts because he believes no one can stop his action. Yeah. You just leveled up the call that folks need to get ahead of this game. What does that look like? Presumptively, you got to start drafting what an indictment would look like, and you need to figure out what the state corollary crimes are, because if Donald Trump is going to try to pardon all these ICE officers at the federal level, they need to be prosecuted locally. There it is. County Commissioner Dana Barrett, Brendan Bellaloo, thank you both so much for getting us started. Ahead, Congresswoman Alita Grijalva joins the conversation to give a reality check to the Trump administration's claims of a drawdown on immigration agents in Minnesota. And later, the administration gets criticism from an unlikely source, a Republican megadonor. We're going to show you what he's saying. You're watching The Weeknight. Let's start with some breaking news. Trump's so-called borders, or Tom H. Homan, said this morning that the administration will withdraw 700 federal agents from Minnesota. But just moments ago, he made it clear to his audience of one on Fox, quote, "Nothing's changed. I said today mass deportations will continue, and I said no if illegal aliens are not off the table. President Trump promised to make this country safe again. Mass deportations are here. They're coming. We're already breaking records, and we're not going to stop. If you're in the country illegally, we're looking for you. We're going to arrest you, and we're going to deport you." Meanwhile, the White House remains incapable of acknowledging the damage its aggressive crackdown has done to communities. Just listen to J.D. Vance responding to questions about the killing of Alex Prey. Did you plan to apologize to the family of Alex Freddie for what? For, labeling him an assassin with ill intent. So if this hypothetical leads to that, hypothetical leads to another, will I do a thing? And again, like I said, we're going to let the investigation determine. We're going to let the actual law come to the surface and figure out what happened. How brave, how literally. Joining us now, Democratic Congresswoman Alita Grijalva of Arizona and Deborah Fleischaker, our former acting ICE chief of staff during the Biden administration. I'm going to let the vice president's comment set for a moment. I'm going to save that to the end of what I want to say because that deserves a very special notation. But I want to deal with this with the bigger question that Homan, it's not even a question point that Haman put on the table. Congresswoman Simona Lisi and I for weeks now have been saying, y'all stop believing what you're reading on the front pages P because it's wrong. You got to look at what they're doing, right? And the fact that, we're taking 200 of 3,000 out of Minnesota. And then this evening, just moments ago, to the audience of one, as Alicia pointed out, reassuring him, no, mass deportations. We're still going on with that. If you're an illegal alien, you're on. Well, first off, the only alien our home is thugs. Those are the aliens here because this is not the American spirit or the American way. How do you every day walk into that building across the hall knowing that you are surrounded by a bunch of individuals who don't give a damn about who you represent being there and don't give a damn about the people out there who are scared and frightened right now, whose kids won't go outside and play, who are concerned about their parents taking them to school because they may get snatched up by ICE. What do you say to them? What do we do in this moment? How should we characterize this when Mr. Holman is telling us and I'm saying us, not just Hispanics and other people of color, but all of us? You're on the list and you're an alien. You're gone. You know, it amazes me that I'm in a room with a bunch of people who have no empathy and seemingly no understanding. And so what I keep telling the community members at large, if you have a representative that is not representing your interests, that aren't representing your communities, then get rid of them. We have an opportunity in the midterm to do that. Like the way ICE is treating people is inhumane. It is without regard and without any empathy or feeling, but it's also against our Constitution. And so when we look at the law that everyone has due process, this administration is choosing not to adhere to the law. Period. And what we're doing is, we have press conferences and we're telling Noam to get out. Miller needs to get out. When we're assuming, and I think incorrectly, that Noam is the one that is creating policy. I don't think she has the bandwidth to do that. I think Stephen Miller, and he's just a weird little man who has a lot of power to him directly. Absolutely. And that's where we have to continue to fight for the people who sent us here and get rid of those who aren't doing their job and allowing our country to become neighborhoods and communities that are living in constant fear. Melanie Stanberry, Congresswoman, she had just some very pointed comments yesterday in this forum that Democrats held on Capitol Hill. I want you all to take a listen to what she had to say about ICE. Over the last year, over 37 individuals have died in immigrant detention. Multiple people have been murdered and gunned down in the street. We have 3 individuals in front of us here today who, in front of the entire world, their lives were shattered. And this was not an accident or of lack of training. This is the policy of the United States government, and it is being paid for by your tax dollars. Congresswoman Melanie Sansbury of New Mexico. She makes a very important and I think pointed point here. We keep hearing a lot about how people just need more training, but it seems to me that Secretary Noam is unable to rein in the rogue elements of the organizations within her agency. And that is why there has to be a serious conversation about should they continue to have funding. And Customs and Border Patrol, I think there should be a conversation about should they be funded more than 100 miles from the border, because they are the ones that are also wreaking terror on Americans. This is not the same organization, or maybe it is. Training is important, but leadership is more important. What we're seeing is from the top, and the ICE agents and the Border Patrol officers that are involved in the Minneapolis operation and around the country understand what they're supposed to do. Secretary Noam isn't trying to rein them in. They have a quota that they're supposed to meet every day. They're supposed to get 3,000 arrests. They're supposed to get 1 million deportations a year. They can't do that if they're not doing some of what they're doing. There simply aren't enough people with criminal backgrounds to arrest to meet the quotas. So they are looking for other people. They are not trying to target people, and they're doing indiscriminate sweeps, as we've seen. All right. It's why you can't really reconcile what Tom Holman is saying about the deportation machine and what you are hearing from the president and others about drawing down troops in Minnesota, because both things actually cannot be true at the same time. Absolutely. And I think that for anybody who's cared to see it, it's been obvious that it's a snow job from the beginning. They've been trying to walk a line where they've been walking back the rhetoric so that people will get off their backs without changing the approach or tactics. I think it's really interesting, Michael, that the political element of this does seem to be shifting. And by that, I mean, you've seen all the same polling that I have, where now even Republican voters saying, well, I didn't think this is what I was voting for. I don't support this. I think that's in part because of the images we've seen out of places like Minneapolis. Also, I thought this was interesting. This is from Senator Roger Wicker, who was voicing his opposition to a new ICE facility in Mississippi. I strongly oppose DHS's proposed plan to turn a warehouse in Mississippi into an ICE detention center. I am all for immigration enforcement, but this site was meant for economic development and job creation. All of a sudden, when it's in their backyard in one form or another, they become clear that this shouldn't be the administration's priority. And if I could, Congress, as you answer that, that's why I said to all these immigrants that they're coming after, y'all go to Texas, Mississippi, Alabama, show up in the red districts, in the red parts of the state, and see how these local congressmen and senators react. Well, we have a facility that was made as a warehouse, essentially, that DHS just purchased for detention in Moorana, right around the corner from my district. And when you look at the detention facilities and the money making that is happening there, that's why people are waiting so long for this process process to happen. I mean, I think fundamentally this has nothing to do with security. This has nothing to do with making people feel safer in their communities. It's a moneymaker. And when you follow the money, you realize, oh, those were the people that helped to fund the East Wing. Those are the people that gave all that money to the Republican Party and to Trump. And this is their payback. And so they are using our tax dollars that are supposed to go for SNAP and healthcare and assistance. They're using that to fund themselves, which is why I think the contracts need to be examined. Exactly. And there is, I know, legislation on the table right now that would pause any further contracts that DHS would sign, because we are literally signing away the rights for companies to come in and warehouse oftentimes American citizens. Correct. The three individuals who were at the hearing, the forum yesterday, they were all Americans. Can we talk about the body cams? Because everybody's been talking about body cams lately, child. We had Jir Fry today who talked about the drawdown in the body cams. This is a quote from the announcement, says, quote, "The drawdown and body-worn cameras are a step in the right direction, but 2,000 ICE officers still here is not de-escalation. My message to the White House has been consistent. Operation Metro Search has been catastrophic for our residences and businesses. It needs to end immediately." Mayor Fry, I think, is making a very important point here. Here's my concern about the body cameras. The officer that shot Renee Good literally filmed it while he did it. They have DHS actually has camera crews that come with them oftentimes and film what they're doing. In Minneapolis, Johnny and Christian, who were literally at work and just happened to be brown on the job, who were tackled by ICE and Border Patrol agents, there was someone there with a camera getting all the angles. So I don't think I have a problem filming things. This is the same department that went down to El Salvador, created propaganda. Christine used the bodies of men, the majority of them, who had committed no crimes and were swept up by the United States government. So body cams, I don't think, are the answer here. It's not enough. It's absolutely not enough. Body cameras are a good tool. They're a tool for accountability and a tool for transparency. Those are good things. But again, when the leadership is telling you do more, do faster, get more people, do it without constraint, having the video doesn't matter. It's what happens. It's what happens afterwards. I guess at one point, at what point is it incumbent upon these agents to say, I cannot and will not do this? Because when we talk about the prosecutions that are coming after the fact, the day after, whenever the day after comes, these agents are not going to be immune. So when is it that they say, you know what, maybe this, I can't do this? I would like to think that it's now, but I think we see that for too many of them, it's not. I suspect that many of them assume they will be pardoned before Trump leaves office. And, some of them aren't unhappy with the assignments in the first place. So I think it runs the gamut. I agree with you, though, that we're sort of crossing a moral line that people should be uncomfortable. I did, before we go, want to put that button on the vice president's comment about Mr. Prey and his family. Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, as one Catholic to another, you know better. Yes, sir. Congresswoman Adelisa Gralva and Deborah Flyshaker, thanks so much to you both. In a moment, Donald Trump wants to move on from the Epstein files, but we are not moving on. And it's not that simple for the survivors of Epstein's abuse. Jennifer Freeman, an attorney for several survivors, joins us next, only on the Weeknet. Donald Trump is desperate to move on from the Epstein files. Did you read those new files that were published by the Department of Justice? I didn't. I have a lot of things I'm doing, and I think it's time now for the country to maybe get on to something else. What would you say to people feel justice, Mr. President? Something that people care about. But Trump might be the only person that is ready to move on. On Monday, the House Oversight Committee will depose Epstein accomplice and convicted sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell. At the end of the month, the committee will speak with former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, who have not been charged with any criminal wrongdoings. Then in March, the committee will depose the executives of the Epstein estate. You can thank Democrats and a few Republicans. You can thank them because they're the people continuing to demand answers despite pressure from Trump to stop. And we can also thank the survivors. Joining us now is Jennifer Freeman, special counsel at Marsh Law Firm and an attorney for several survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's abuse. Counselor, welcome to the conversation. Yes, we can thank folks for the pressure, and we need more of it. But I especially want to start this part of the conversation by thanking the survivors. But I also, at the same time, want to excoriate and just make it very plain to the American people what this government did to the victims of Jeffrey Epstein by exposing their names, their personal information, their identities in a way that they did not with the men who raped and abused those women, those young girls. And so that part for me is what sticks in my crawl in all of this. You have the administration going after Bill Clinton, but Bill Clinton's name was not mentioned 38,000 times in the Epstein files along with his wife. So all of these distractions are disheartening, but probably, and I want to get your thoughts on this, the most disheartening part of what this government did was by releasing those names and that information was in a real way, from what I've been able to source together, is a threat to further threaten those young women, to put them on at unease by exposing who they are now, subjects them to the lunacy of MAGA space and others who may want to go after them if they say something, if they name names, because at the end of the day, the end game for those folks are to protect Donald Trump. The end game for these women is to get justice for what happened to them. The imbalance, Michael, is horrifying, and thanks for having me with you. But that's exactly how so many of the survivors feel. They feel that this has been incompetent, they feel that this has been intentional, and they feel this has been intimidating, and all those things have been just horrifying to so many of the survivors, and it doesn't make any sense. It is not that difficult to redact documents. If we just step back a minute and think about how is that done? You take, let's say, 2 or 3 attorneys, and obviously you have to have multiple attorneys because there's so many pages. You give them clear instructions on what to redact, and that those clear instructions should have been developed with the survivors and the survivors' attorneys. They were not, but even so, you give them clear instructions on what to redact, and then they redact. The individuals get redacted the names, the identifying information, and then you have a supervisor, at least one supervisor, and perhaps 2, go over the documents again and double check. But clearly that was not done, and it's a simple thing to do. Some of the big news this week is the Clintons coming in for depositions. The President of the United States had what I would call an interesting reaction to that news. Take a listen to what he had to say. Mr. President, today we heard that the Clintons set deposition dates to testify before the House Oversight Committee. Any reaction to that related? I think it's a shame, to be honest. I always liked her, yeah. Well, she was a very capable woman. She was better in debating than some of the other people. I will tell you that she was smart woman. I hate to see it in many ways. It's interesting. It's a level of empathy rarely expressed by this president. And I wonder if it had anything to do with what Democrats on Capitol Hill are saying, which is that this effectively sets a precedent. You have Ted Lieu saying, we're absolutely going to have Donald Trump testify under oath. You have Maxwell Frost saying it does set a precedent and we will follow it. Donald Trump, all of his kids, everybody. Do you think we ever see that day, Jennifer? I don't think we'll see that day in the near future. I hope to see that day, but I really doubt that it will be very soon. I think that the Trump administration has so much power over whether or not he would testify. I think that's highly unlikely. But certainly it's a good precedent to set for everyone, because this is what the survivors want. They want the truth, and the truth comes out when everyone is investigated. Everyone gets a chance, and everyone is pushed and pressed to give the facts, what they know and what they don't know. You know, I think the facts are very important. And yesterday at the White House, we've played some sound from the president talking about this investigation. At least he just played the sound talking about the Clintons. And, you know, he attacked Caitlin Collins, a journalist from CNN, yesterday for asking what justice looks like for survivors. And he didn't seem interested in the justice detailing what that would be. He's not saying move on because the survivors have gotten justice. And I want to highlight Virginia Dufresne's family. This came out today following the release of additional documents from the Epstein files. We want to highlight that in the newly released Epstein records from the DOJ last week, there is a sworn deposition from Virginia given during a lawsuit. Importantly, the DOJ did not redact the names of most of the abusers Virginia identified, and her family wants to ensure that this fact is widely known. They have expressed hope that even more names of her abusers will be made public in future releases, either through additional DOJ disclosures or materials from Epstein's estate. This statement comes directly from the family of Virginia Roberts Giuffre. The question now is, why don't we know more yet?